So I'm really excited about this panel. We're talking about growing Lightning infrastructure. You know, we've got Bitcoin, which is a great bear asset, and now with Lightning Network, we've got a great way to spend it. How do we build up the infrastructure to really put the ends together and get the world to use Lightning? So I'm Evan Kaloudis. I'm joined here with a real great cast. So I got Olaoluwa, Osuntokun, right?
No, that's pretty good.
I'm trying. You're CTO at Lightning Labs. Mm-hmm. I got Lisa Neigut, right? She's working over on C Lightning over at Blockstream.
Yeah, that's right.
And all the way at the end, we got Rockstardev. Yeah, he likes to pretend he's trying to stay anon, but he's still afraid of COVID, so he's all masked up.
I love masks. I love masks, or Bitcoin masks.
So yeah, let's dive into it. How are we going to get to where we want to go? What needs to be built?
Good question. I think there's definitely a lot of layers because, you know, Lightning in particular, like, obviously you have like the wallet itself, and you also have kind of like routing infrastructure. You have pathfinding. You have like feed bumping. There's a number of also kind of like protocols that you can build on top of the system because it's so extensible, right? So I feel like
a lot of different moving pieces, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And so, you know, I think the main thing is always kind of like I'll maximize like the end user experience basically, and then see what we need to build so basically make the user experience better. So maybe there's things like a pathfinding. There's like, you know, different protocols like synchronized wallets, exchange invoices, things like AMP, things like it's kind of like power what's going on.
So. Yeah. Okay, Rose, you got to speak a little clearer and slow it down because I'm keeping up, but I'm not sure everyone in the audience is. So
sure.
So yeah, let's talk about a couple of things you guys rolled out this year. For me, you know, L&D has been getting better, and I'm really happy with the pool product and, you know, seeing the markets for liquidity build up and people being able to, you know, make some sats back for putting up liquidity in these channels, and in the process, you know, making the whole network more liquid. So that's been awesome to see.
Definitely.
Lisa, what have you been working on?
Yeah, so talking about liquidity stuff, that's something I've been working on kind of at C Lightning and like at the spec level. We just released a version of C Lightning that has an experimental version of a spec change we're calling dual funding. It's really exciting in itself, it's not really, I mean, it's cool in itself because basically it enables Lightning operators to do coin joins at open, which is pretty dope.
Love
so we're like really excited about that. Awesome. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But speaking of liquidity, now that we've got this ability for two different nodes to kind of negotiate a transaction, that gives us like a platform we can build this thing I'm calling like liquidity ads on top of it. So basically we can build a decentralized market for liquidity inside the Lightning spec protocol that'll allow nodes to advertise like, hey, I've got some liquidity, I'd love to help open a channel with you and put it in. So that's like something that C Lightning we're working on currently, and we're really excited about like helping people figure out where liquidity is in the network and how to like open channels such that it's like allocated in the right way, which is cool.
Yeah, I'm really pumped about dual funded channels in that you get a couple perks, right? Like you get two people putting up liquidity, right? So you can share your UTXO to make the channel. But also just by default, by two people putting up the capital, you get liquidity both ways. You get both the incoming and outcoming liquidity. And
right, yeah. Which, like, I think we had a little bit of disagreement on Twitter was it last week?
Rose wanted to bring it up.
Which, like, I mean, I think it was really about, like, what we call things, right? And I think, like, so I think it's good to make a distinction that, like, the dual-funded channel spec work that we're doing enables you to make something that I would call like balanced channels. And so balanced channels are channels that have the same amount of liquidity on both sides. There's a couple different ways to make balanced channels. Lightning Labs just released a really cool new thing on Pool, sidecar channels.
Sidecar channels, yeah.
And I think you also enabled like push-funded balanced channels on like the Pool infrastructure, right? Yeah. So I mean, this balanced channel thing is awesome. There's like a couple different ways to make that happen now with like the push funding on like version 1 channels, and with dual funded channels you can make balanced channels also. Takes a little more negotiation, I think, which I feel like Pool has kind of like figured out the negotiation stuff. You guys got that down.
I think that's interesting about like, you know, because Pool today we already have the coordination there and like the market itself. Coming out. Test.
Yeah.
There. It's like,
Your mic's coming in and out.
coming out. Test.
Technical difficulties.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna use this one.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, hopefully it's not going to echo or something like that. But no, but I was saying like Pool basically is kind of like a marketplace that we have right now. So a lot of people kind of like buy and sell liquidity. I think they're working on kind of like a slightly different version that may be a little more distributed. One thing I want to say about the whole balanced channel thing, I feel like people need to kind of like remember that channel management is definitely like a very big part of operating Lightning node to make sure everything's actually working properly. But a balanced channel, like it's an ephemeral state, right? So if you balance the channel, I can route around you and I can rebalance that as well too, right? So I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you can strive for the initial state, but it also takes like ongoing management to keep your channels to a balanced state in the beginning. So it definitely helps, from the start. But you also need to kind of like consider, why do I rebalance, and also what's my cost of rebalancing as well, right? Because if you're rebalancing constantly and actually like getting any funds or if you're routing revenue yourself, you're kind of like bleeding money over and over again, right? So I think certain individuals, particularly like those that are really committed to Pool, are really trying to optimize or maximize and kind of min-max their actual revenue. And probably like one of the people that does a really good job is on our team, Alex Bosworth. He's kind of like the routing god in a sense, right? So we always get tips from things like that to make sure we're shipping the products properly and just guiding people with guides and things like that.
Incredible, man.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Just a lot of new ways to, sort through the complexities of channels and onboarding new users. It's great. It's great to see the experimentation. It's great to see things becoming more easy UX-wise. Let's talk about what you're working on, Rockstar.
No, man. I'm giving up all my time to roast beef. Because look at this. This is why I love being around him. Like, crazy stuff happens. See, like, even Mike gave up how fast he talks. So it's just fun. And being in this panel, like what these two people are doing is phenomenal. And
it's incredible, yeah.
I think like they grew the infrastructure to the point where us who are on application layer should like take over and do more, because the stuff that you can do on Lightning today is already phenomenal. And for me, Lightning is all about that superpower. Like, superpower of Lightning is settlement. You don't even have instant settlement on chain. You need to wait that block to happen. So we just need to leverage that on application layer properly. And I'm blessed to be on 2 projects that are doing that. BTCBased Server, my open source family. Like, I hope there are a lot of BTCBased Server supporters in the crowd. Are there any?
All right, let's hear it.
Let's make BitPay obsolete and when Lightning. But we'll discuss that tomorrow. Tomorrow is a presentation in Fosstone that Matt is organizing. There is a BTCBased Server presentation. Please come. So BTCBased Server, open source, and then with Jack Mallers, what they're doing with Strike.
Now that's a really user-friendly product. I love Strike. You get a fiat balance, you load up your bank, right, and you're just instantly able to pay any Lightning invoice, any on-chain invoice, and we're seeing it go into new markets, right? So you guys are in El Salvador now, right?
Yes.
And really cutting into the remittance game, which is huge.
Man, I'm telling you, like, this is obsolete BitPay. This will be like obsolete banks. So that's the approach. Let's go. Yeah,
let's hear it.
Let's go.
I want to say a really quick thing about Strike, which I think is awesome. So Strike, the application for sending money, peer-to-peers, right? I had a conversation with Peter McCormick on Easter Sunday of this year, and he asked me the question that we always get as Lightning devs, like, when is Lightning going to be ready? And I was like, dude, what do you mean ready? Like, ready for who? And he's like...
It's software, right? There's always more to be done, right?
Yeah. And like, Peter's like, well, ready for me. And I was like, dude, you should check out Strike. Like, I think that's like the Peter McCormick level of like Lightning. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like a few weeks later, I don't know if you remember this or whatever, but a few weeks later, I think he went down to, is it El Salvador, where they're doing like the Bitcoin.
He was telling us about that the other day.
Yeah, I think it's Bitcoin Beach or something. And he was like, guys, Strike is awesome. This is amazing. I felt really good because I was like,
converted at that point, basically.
Yeah,
right?
he was like, dude, Lightning works. I was like, yeah, Peter, you found like great, good job. I'm really glad you like found the thing that is ready for you.
But it's amazing. It sounds like the ecosystem is being built out there, and every time he goes down, more merchants further up the coast are adopting it, and there's still a lot of ways to go. A lot of them are still using, a custodial wallet, but they have someone in the community managing it, right? So they're taking that Uncle Jim model, someone hosting the node, worrying about the channel liquidity, but at least it's with someone who's accountable, someone they know, and it's good to see that happening. But it's incredible. People are accepting Bitcoin for payments down there, and they're getting familiar with Lightning, how it works, how the invoicing works.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's really an incredible phenomenon and encouraging to see.
Yeah, but I kind of think it makes a good opportunity to sort of point out like how Lightning infrastructure is like developing, as there's kind of like layers of interaction, right, that people can get involved in. Lalu was talking earlier about how like, you know, if you start with a balanced channel, that's like an ephemeral state, right? Like the money moves, and so like, if you're operating a node, you kind of have this like sort of difficult problem about how to like make the liquidity in the right place so that the payments that need to get through the network can like get through the network, like pathfinding that you mentioned at the start. And like, I think that like, you know, that's a really hard problem, and I don't think we've solved that yet. Like, I think it's like a work in progress. So like, I think when I say like there's tiers of like participation, right? Like, you really kind of do need an expert at like managing some. Right now, we're hoping we'll be able to like make that more accessible soon. But Lightning Strike is doing an amazing job of like making it accessible to like more people. And I think that's really awesome.
Definitely, yeah. And like, you know, as Lisa's saying, like, no one's really figured it out. There's no kind of like, you know, silver bullet, like do this and this and this. You basically like have like a proper routing node. So one thing we've been working on is basically something basically like terminal web. It was kind of like based on some additional scoring systems. So we're kind of like doing some analysis on nodes to effectively kind of like rank them, you know, based on kind of like their liquidity. So like the main thing that we do is like obviously like, you know, a node can look good on chain basically, or like maybe on the graph. Okay, I have a lot of channels, things like that. But the channels aren't well balanced. If the channels aren't available, it's not really going to be good at routing node, right? So we're trying to like, you know, work to kind of like dispel those myths. Okay, the biggest node is the best node. No, well, the most well-managed node is actually the best node, right? So people can check it out. It's terminal web, kind of like you can basically put in your pub key. And one thing we're trying to do as well is trying to like give people like, you know, hints towards like pushing them in the right direction, basically. Oh, we notice your channels are disabled. Oh, we notice your fees are high. Oh, we notice you have like bad uptime, right? So we're kind of like, you know, pushing in that direction to kind of like coach them up to basically eventually run kind of like what would be a good node, basically, and you know, get the one fuzzies, get some sats as well. Because even like my node now, like I think I have like maybe 25 million sats in it. It's like, you know, increased, like I think the volume has increased like 60% over the past like 2 or 3 months. So I checked it. So I think this year alone, I've routed 7 BTC on my node. And like, it's like, I don't really do much. I just leave it there. Like, it's mainly for development. And it just kind of shows that, okay, like this is actually growing. Because I think that's one of the things where it's like, you know, you can't track all the activity on chain. You actually need to be involved in the network, basically. So if you're involved in the network, if you're running a routing, you're like, oh my God, this thing's actually growing now. Like I'm routing. So if I'm routing, you can probably route. Like, you know. Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, from my experiences so far, so routing, if you want to get the routes and start actually making revenue off it, you got to be somewhat hands-on in managing the channels. I've learned that liquidity is not equal. Different liquidity has different values, but I think it's also contextual depending on, you know, what your flows are. If you're more than just a routing node, right? Different liquidity is more valuable to different people depending on, you know, what their business flows are looking like and whatnot. And I'm just really glad that we have, you know, more and more tools every day to manage it and make it easier.
Definitely.
Like Lightning Terminal and Pool and being
Zeus
able to
as well, your wallet, right?
Zeus, yeah. You know, all sorts of you know, interfaces, Ride the Lightning and Thunder Hub, stuff like that is becoming more and more accessible every day. And you know, we haven't gotten it all worked out. We're all sort of trying to figure out what the best way to manage all these things are, but it's really cool to see it, you know, grow day by day.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, because you know, like Lightning didn't start out like, you know, 0-1 basically. It took us like several years, right? So like, you know, we didn't just like turn it on. The other thing is, well, I feel like the developers are kind of like very like much like methodical and kind of like managing expectations. We had the limits initially, but we had kind of like clamp channel size, like we did one with the last year before. So we're kind of been growing steadily over the past few years. Now it's to the point where it's like, yeah, it's like, you know, if you know, you know, like, you know, you feel it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I mean. It's at some point it's just theoretical, but now as we're putting more and more capital on the network, there's incentives to, you know, do exploits, figure out where the edges are and where the walls are and what the limits are, and yeah, we're finding them every day, and
yeah, we're all still learning. Like she said, no one's figured it out yet, so like, no,
yeah.
No, but yeah, I think one thing that's also really cool is now like the infrastructure is a little bit better. We're starting to see people kind of like build more applications on top of Lightning itself. For example, like things like kind of like streaming sats are getting a lot bigger. People kind of like tipping people for podcasts. People doing kind of like micro type of things before. So like many of those things maybe weren't as feasible like in the past, but we kind of sell infrastructure based, right? That's the main thing where it's like you can't try to build on top of it too quickly unless you have like a really good base. Now I think it's the point where many people companies that tell us, okay, it just works, and that's what we want to hear, right? Like usually I'm like, okay, what's the issue? Do I look at the logs and you send me the debug information? And they're like, no, it worked. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's not touch it or something.
Do you guys want to talk about why we're late today? Why we showed up just last minute? Thanks to the stage guys for bearing with us, but we had our hands full. We were in the Mint Gox arena playing some games with Zebedee. It was a battle between Lightning Labs, right?
And BTC Pay.
First BTC Pay. I joined the BTC Pay.
Lightning Labs won. Yeah, it was 8-3. It was.
All right. You guys played great, but let's be real. You guys practice. You got some practice.
No. Like that was the third time I've ever played the game. Okay, like so I'm not like a pro or anything. But y'all even had people from the crowd, right? This was just our team. And we also had Oliver actually like playing remotely from Switzerland, and he was our MVP.
Oh my God,
as well, so.
Oliver's the best. He's great engineer at Lightning Labs.
Yeah, but the really cool part about like the way that they have in CS:GO, it's kind of like an esports competition basically, right? It's like rather than like you getting a payout maybe 2 or 3 months later, okay, like what currency, whatever else, you basically can like send and receive sats and actually get payouts as well too. So typically maybe at work people pay like 20K sats to get into the pot of it itself. You play the game, then you get an instant withdrawal. So it's a really cool thing, kind of combining like gaming and Lightning together.
I just love the live feedback. Like in the corner of the screen, you're seeing your sats balance, flash up or down, like after every kill. And you sort of have like this financial measure of like how you're doing, and you're like, I got to get that balance back up. So, it's sort of like the difference between like playing poker with real money or just playing it without money. Like with the sats on the line, you got this incentive to, it makes things more competitive, certainly. But I'm really bullish about the gaming stuff because it's going to introduce a whole new generation of kids to Bitcoin.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt you. How does I haven't really played these games yet. Can you guys talk a little bit about how Lightning like integrates with earning sats in the game?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, so like with the way that's set up in the game, they actually have something called Infuse. It's kind of like a custom like CS:GO server basically, right? That's like kind of like interpreting the game state and things like that. So whenever you actually like do a kill, you get additional satoshis, right? And then whenever like you lose, you basically like lose satoshis at the end of it. And then whenever you actually like the game's over, you can then withdraw the satoshis. So it's kind of like a money match, right? Like you kind of like putting down 20K stats on the game basically. You have to like really get into it, and like the winner gets the prize pool. So it's a really cool thing because now I can see it's get really big because, for example, like you can play it purely online as well, right? You don't need to be in the same place. You can do it without like any like sign up. Anyone in the world can participate with it as well. There's no requirement or anything like that. So it kind of like just really takes down all of the barriers to esports basically. And all of a sudden we have like Bitcoin, which is the the internet's currency, powering all this gaming going on online. So it's really cool.
It's amazing, and like for the most part, the games are working with any wallet. It's just like you deposit with Lightning, right?
Exactly.
And then when you want to withdraw and get your earnings, it's LN URL withdraw, and you create an invoice and it goes right to your wallet.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I think one really cool thing about it as well is like they didn't actually have to modify CS:GO. So it's vanilla CS:GO, but then it talks to their custom server. So as a result of that, you can roll it out really quickly. There's no like weird malware pirating thing or something like that. So it's really dope. Definitely check it out. Mint Gox, the CS:GO competition. And also I think the semifinals are later today. I think it's us versus Fold in the semifinals. So hopefully we'll come through. People definitely come check it out.
Yeah, we got to get some more games in later. So much fun.
Yeah.
What kind of other opportunities does Lightning enable? Like, we've seen stuff with like podcasts and live streaming sats. We've seen messaging. Like, what cutting edge things are you guys most excited about?
I actually think, all those novel uses of Lightning, like they won't be too important in the long run, because I really think Lightning will be ready for the main show once more exchanges adopt it as a deposit method. And once you build that enterprise network, because like what OKCoin did, allowing you to deposit, shout out to OKCoin, you can deposit to their exchange using Lightning. You want to add something to that, roast beef? Or?
Oh yeah, I'm saying like it's really big because I think this year we basically starting to see the exchanges come on like more full force basically. In the past we were kind of like, okay, well, we knew we weren't really ready, they were not ready, but now I think it's the point where like things are getting more mature. So like you're saying, we have OKCoin, we have Bitfinex, I think Kraken's coming up soon as well too. I think we'll see more and more come through because like one cool thing is like OKCoin listed it because their users were requesting it basically, like, oh, we've been paying too much on chain. Because you see whenever the price like chops up, the mempool also chops up as well too. If like Bitcoin's spiking, the mempool is spiking. So it's a big thing. People want to basically do arbitrage. And another big thing as well, like when you have people in kind of like new emerging areas, like paying a very like high on-chain fee to withdraw. I bought $20. I'm paying $2 on-chain basically. So I think Lightning's a really big thing there to basically make sure that individuals can actually participate in the system properly.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. More exchanges have to come out and actually integrate it so users can deposit and withdrawals. But the arbitrage thing is a very important angle, and it's fun thinking about that. Like, if there's a price spread between two exchanges, instead of having to wait the 6 confirmations to make this arbitrage play, you can start settling it in like a minute's time. When you get into the gritty of it, it's like the price spread is going to become smaller and smaller. So price discovery is going to become so much easier with the Lightning Network. And that's another thing I'm really excited about.
I feel like this is where I'd have to like show Liquid and be like, no, this is like what the Liquid Network is for, guys. Like, wrong panel. We can have this conversation.
Well, there's a limit to the arbitrage on Lightning, because you don't want a whale to see an arbitrage opportunity of 6 Bitcoin, right? And just wipe out your entire
Well, that's where you get
lifespan.
confidential transactions on Liquid, which is like, sorry.
She's doing her job. Like,
Yeah, right?
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, sorry, to go back to like Lightning again. I think the thing I really want to see that as far as I know, like hasn't really gotten hit yet or like been introduced yet is like paywall. Like I want to pay for an article.
No, that's so
I want
big.
to pay for like to watch a YouTube video.
Exactly.
I don't want to subscribe to anything. I don't want
$60 a year for one article. It's
Yeah,
like, nah.
forget that. Let me pay a couple sats, I'll read the article, and I'm good. And previously, credit cards, it didn't make sense to pay the transaction fee, if it's less than $1 or $2, right? But now if we could pay fractions of pennies worth of value,
so great.
I think that's going to be big, yeah. Because like I think my big dream is basically I think Lightning can kill the paywall basically, right? Because you can actually have it directly integrated into the web.
Good.
So we've been working on something infrastructure-wise called LSAT basically. So you use HTTP 402 to kind of like say, okay, well you do the request, you get a response back, hey, payment required, right? That attaches a Lightning invoice. Once you pay the Lightning invoice, you get like kind of like what's effectively a cookie. You can then access the website. So all of a sudden now you can do login without any email addresses, no passwords. You can basically have like an API monetized in real time basically. You can have like a network of other individuals kind of like having this like function as a service type micropayment network. Like this is like, the future of computing, quote unquote, type stuff. Like, so it's what gets me really hyped.
Yeah, but I think like to go back to the infrastructure kind of like topic a bit, like there's like so much. It's like Apple Pay on wallet, like on your mobile phone, is kind of like in my mind like the best like mobile payment like stuff right now.
the user experience is just so clean.
Yeah, well, like you just like hit the button and then you click a button on the side and then it's like done, right? And like as far as I know, like we haven't really managed to like get that level of integration with like Lightning wallets like on mobile phones yet. Maybe soon. I don't know.
No, maybe soon, but I think also like, I'd say probably in the past like 2 or so years, the Lightning wallets have gotten so much better, right? So like I think, Phoenix definitely like led the way, the ASIC, the company, kind of like, maximizing for user experience. Breeze is really great, Moon as well too. So I think now that we have like, very good user experience on the wallets, basically as far as like sync times, and just like kind of like reliability as well too, now things can really start to take off.
Incredible. I'm just really excited by the possibilities. So we're coming up on time here, but I want to thank you guys all, not just for joining me on this panel, but for all the great things you're building. I'm really excited to be, working with you guys and the tech and helping with my little part of it and getting the chance to talk with you all. It's incredible.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So
Thanks, man.
yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
That's it.